What does it mean for a franchise to die? What does it mean to lose everything that it once was? Well, right now we're looking at what's effectively the death of a superhero. Marvel, the franchise, is basically dying under its own weight. Though arguably it doesn't necessarily need to, it is because it is unable to adapt. It's unwilling to let go, effectively. And I'd like to tie this into Star Wars in a little bit, but for now, just bear with me. So, the reason Marvel's dying right now is because it is effectively sticking to the hard line of a superhero, is refusing to allow it to expand or adapt, to do anything really different. There's a lot of things to be said about this, about why, about how, and all the various things, but I'd like to sum it up rather quickly by saying that what's going on is a corporate decision to put new characters into old shoes, and this will never work. Endgame ended the superhero genre. It could not exist as it had previously done. If you understand how a three-act structure works for writing, you understand that at the end of it all, everything must come down. And this has never been adjusted for. This is a corporate issue that is never properly addressed. So Marvel is having a significant issue with knowing what to do next. It doesn't understand that it needs to have some downtime and it needs to move on to a new plot point effectively. Um, but that's rather difficult when you have superheroes. You know who the good guy is, you know who the bad guy is, you know who has to win in the end. A general audience gets tired of this. They've had a decade of it. It's time to find something new. I do not believe Star Wars would need to have this problem. And this is specifically because it is Star Wars. Star Wars has an era for just about everything. As I've stated before, you could have a horror movie in Star Wars. Now think about that. If you have the end of a series, if you've gone a decade looking at action, flashy lights, and high octane drama, just a bunch of high octane stuff as it's been going on, superhero movies, and what next? Well, what seems to be next is westerns. The Mandalorian is doing very well by dealing with a adventure plot. It's a fatherly advice, but if you look back to what westerns were, they were effectively adventure and romance. There was some comedy tied in, there was some action tied in, but it was mostly adventure and with a subplot of romance, a subplot of action. Well, Star Wars can do that. It can go into that direction. But what happens when that fails? It will only go so long. What if the next is a war movie? Well, the Old Republic had an awful lot of wars. It was back in a time when nothing was really straightforward. The Jedi Order was not portrayed as being a unified front, as being unilaterally good. The Sith were not unilaterally evil. Both sides had turnover. Things were complicated. Fighting was constant. So you can have a genre of war movies. What I mean to say with all of this is that the general issue with the franchise is that they never know how to move on. They never know where to go from there. And most of them are so tied into themselves that they can't really move on. This is where I'm going to take a minor dig at my Trekkies. Love y'all, but I hate to break it to you, we are better over here in Star Wars. Um, what happened when you had a superhero movie in Star Trek? Into Darkness failed miserably by any Trekkie's standards, and it was nothing like Star Trek, and they claimed that it wasn't Star Trek. Now, argue what you will about Star Wars, but it doesn't really have that issue. The look and the feel of Star Wars isn't necessarily that it's a Western, or that it's must be good versus evil. It is in a galaxy far, far away. It is in a galaxy. So why restrict it to one thing forever?